You guys know I've been all over this. The Oilers have not had a good start of the season at all, and it's been top to bottom. The team has been lackluster and lifeless. You can't just say, oh, it's the goaltending's fault, it's Darnell Nurse's fault. No, it's been like a group effort of bad play, and their record reflects that right now. In the past, when the Oilers have slipped into something like this, who's been the guy who's pulled them out of it? McFlow, McHeated driveway, McJesus, whatever you want. He's the guy who pulls them out of this type of thing. And honestly, when McDavid sat out the last 4 minutes plus overtime of the game against the Jets, I really thought that it might have stemmed from when Evander Kane accidentally ran into him in the previous game against the Flyers, because it looked like it stung him a bit. I know he was fine to go play, and he played again the next game, but I thought maybe it was lingering and that could be like the root cause of this injury. But no, that's not it. The Oilers put out a statement saying Connor McDavid suffered an upper body injury during last night's game versus the Jets and is expected to be out of the Oilers lineup for 1 to 2 weeks. So it wasn't a lower body thing against the Flyers, and it happened in that game against the Jets. And again, the worst part about this is that the Oilers are playing terrible right now, and they need their captain, their best player, to help drag them out of that funk. I was originally going to title this video The Worst Possible Timing for this injury, but then I thought more about it. It's like, no, if they lost him in the playoffs, that would be the worst possible timing. I will say this, though. In February 2020, Connor McDavid
that's what happened
with a quadriceps injury.
Yeah, that's what...
And honestly...
That's what happened to, Matthew, what's his last name? Tkachuk. Matthew Tkachuk. He got an injury during the, first game of the Stanley Cup Finals. And that's probably the only reason that they probably didn't win. It could have been other reasons, but he was out for the next, 2 or 3 games in the finals. And that just sucked. Straight up. But, here's the thing. He was the best player. Connor McDavid's the same thing. If halfway through towards the trade deadline, a day or after the trade deadline, a day before the trade deadline or after, he gets injured, that's going to be well played through the rest of the season and probably towards the beginning. And that's where the Oilers might fumble a little. They might make some accidents. I think they do need a new goalie system and need some more stable players like Kane. That might be a good lineup. Patrick Kane coming in.
I thought that would completely sink the Oilers' playoff hopes. You know what happened? Leon Draisaitl put the Oilers on his back and proved that he didn't need McDavid to be productive in the NHL as a top-line player. Prior to that, I would have been front of the line calling him a McDavid merchant and telling him to pray to McJesus every day, thanking him for that $8.5 million contract. But since then, and multiple times after, now I'm a total believer in Leon Draisaitl being a superstar on his own. So I'm super fascinated to see what he does this time around. Number 1 franchise player on the team, the guy circled on the whiteboard for other teams. Not McDavid and Draisaitl, no. 29 is bolded and, tattooed on the other team's foreheads. It's really interesting to see. And I know they play on different lines a lot of the time, but it's not the same as when McDavid just straight up isn't in the lineup. And if you've never watched the Oilers before when it's just Draisaitl, I encourage you to, because it's actually really interesting. As the Oilers released a statement about McDavid being injured for 1 to 2 weeks, it's 1 week before the Heritage Classic next week at Commonwealth in Edmonton against the Flames. So obviously for everybody who's going to have to freeze their McButt off at the Commonwealth Stadium there, I'm hoping that McDavid is able to play in that game for those fans there. That is just terrible timing, though, if he's out of the lineup when, first of all, the Oilers need a jolt big time, and second of all, he might miss the Heritage Classic. That's, again, one of the worst timings, other than, the playoffs. As weird as it is, I'm almost going to be more interested in Oilers hockey the next week and a bit here.
Team up with Bic to unleash your superpower. Write with might with Bic's break-resistant pencil that's unbelievably strong. And get a $5 Fandango movie reward when you spend $15 on participating Bic products. The Marvel, only in theaters November 10th.
Really weird situation in last night's Rangers-Seattle game. The weird thing was, I actually fell asleep when I was watching it, so anything after about 5 minutes into the third, you're not going to hear from me, but the really weird situation is that the lights stopped working on one half of the ice. that meant, in the spirit of fairness, halfway through each period, or at least the stoppage closest to halfway, in the second they were like 3 minutes over, the teams would switch ends. The second was interesting because the Rangers actually had such a long sustained push that they had the good side for an extra 3 minutes. Interestingly, the first couple of goals would be on the dark, i.e. the disadvantaged side. Justin Schultz would rip one on a really nice one-timer. Then after the change, you'd get a beautiful play between Hedl and Panarin, and the Breadman would not miss from that close-up. 1-1, 7 minutes left. The trend would actually end after this because in the second, after the switchover, the Rangers would score as Kakko would get his first of the year, picking up off a Trouba rebound. The last goal that I remember watching came again on the dark side, a beautiful play by Alexei Lafreniere to break up the pass, then the give and go to Hedl. Hedl just looked great all night and lapped this season with his second goal. Also another call back has also looked really good. The game would end 4-1 with Jonathan Quick getting his first start as a New York Ranger. That still seems really weird, and facing down 19 shots. I wanted to put something in my title about how I can't remember this happening before in the NHL, but I actually can. The most obvious example is during the Winter Classic. If there are adverse conditions, they will make it so teams switch at the halfway minute of the period, whether it's because of wind or glare. I can also sort of just vaguely remember it happening during regular games. I believe once because the brake conditions were bad and one side was particularly soft ice compared to the rest of the rink. But if you can think of any, please let me know down below. It is an interesting little bit of discretion that the officials have built into the NHL rules so that they can make